Welcome everyone! In this video, we are going to be diving into my ultimate tier list for the Master League. Now, I think the dust has settled on the Master League, guys. Niantic has made it very clear that from here on now, moving forward, it's going to be, the Open Master League is going to be where it's at, guys. So, this is actually the first tier list that I've done for the Master League, and it was for that reason, guys. For so long, we had the classic level 40 Master League up in the air. A lot of us were holding off and having a lot of fun in that league, but I think with the announcement that all classic formats are going away, I think what better time to do a tier list for the Open Master League to help you guys prepare, because Master League is here to stay. It's not going anywhere, guys, and we often find ourselves with just the Master League or something to compete in. So for those of you who want to get ahead of the game and are starting to build your Master League roster now, hopefully this tier list will help you prioritize what to invest in and what to kind of maybe thrift on, if you catch my drift. So the way this works is, for those of you unfamiliar with how tier lists work, S tier is the best of the best, the elite of the elite, right? And you work your way right on down to D tier, which is the exact opposite of that. You will find a lot of the very extremely spicy Pokemon being put in the D tier. And if something is not in this list, guys, there's no way that I could even dream of including every single eligible Pokemon for the Open Master League. So if it's not on this list, guys, I'm pretty confident that I included everything that is worth mentioning. If it's not in here, it's either extremely spicy or just not worth mentioning at all. So, with all that said, let's dive right into this thing, guys. First up, we've got the two Avalugs. Hisuian is pretty decent. It still falls flat against the ever so powerful and widely used Dialga Zashian core. But I'm going to say it's a decent C-tier ice type. It's decent. It can do some things. Has some very decent bulk. Has a very, very solid moveset. It can do some things for sure. Certainly worthy of being in the C-tier. But not so much for its original counterpart, or actually is the Hisuian original, right? Those of you might catch my drift on that, but let me know if you understand what I'm saying there. But yeah, the regular Avalugg, not so much. It just has Ice Fang. I think if it had something a little bit better, Ice Fang and Bite, I mean, those are not the best fast moves around, although it is quite bulky. Has Body Slam, has Avalanche. Those are both excellent charge moves. I just think having Powder Snow, which is a much better ice-type fast move, just puts the Hisuian form slightly above the non-Hisuian. And we've got Buzzwole. Buzzwole is a C-tier Pokemon. It can do some things as well. Does decent against Dialga. It's a little bit under-leveled in terms of CP. I think it only maxes out in the high 3200s, maybe even it might even crack 3300, but it doesn't get much higher than that, really. But having Counter, Superpower, Lunge, you can do some things. It's just shouldn't be your first pick, I would say. It's probably the best counter user that you could go with in the entire meta. And speaking of counter users, we've got Conkeldurr. I think Buzzwole just kind of does what well, not really, because Conkeldurr does have the Stone Edge coverage. I almost put Conkeldurr in the D tier, but I'm going to go ahead and say C tier. It does have a place in this meta. Counter, it only has nuke moves, but it has counter. Anything with counter is going to be very good. It has excellent coverage in terms of Stone Edge. So Conkeldurr, I would say second best counter user in the meta. And then we've got the King of Kings, the conqueror of all, good old Dialga, guys. Come on now. We all know what's up when it comes to Dialga. It is S tier 100%. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's not much to be said about Dialga. It's overpowered to the core. S tier 100%. And we've got Dragonite. Dragonite, guys, man, I don't know if it's ranked ranking on PvPoke is justified at all, guys. I think that's a little misleading. It's strong, guys, but if I had my choice of Dragon Breath users, I'm just thinking of a few other things ahead of Dragonite, and for that reason, it's B tier in my humble opinion. Nothing worse than getting that thing locked into a Zashian. Giving it superpower was an amazing upgrade. It gives it a slightly better chance against Dialga, although it still falls flat against Dialga, unfortunately. But I guess anything not named Dialga or Zashian, or anything that's not an Ice type with an Ice type fast move and an Ice type charge move, I think Dragonite's going to do just fine. Very powerful Pokemon. I just think it's a little bit overrated on PvPoke, I would say. And we've got Excadrill. Once upon a time, this thing was solid A/S tier, but I'm going to go ahead and say B tier. I know a lot of you are going to probably go absolutely nuts. You could make a strong case for A tier, I would say, but with Zashian coming on the scene not too long ago, it's been a couple of seasons now, Excadrill just can't quite do what it once was able to do, unfortunately, which is why it has kind of fallen off a little bit. Not to mention getting that thing stuck onto a Giratina, forget about it. Still strong, still excellent answer to Dialga. But we've got another part to that Dialga equation, and that is undoubtedly the Zashian that might be lurking in the back. So, yeah, still strong, still solid, can still destroy Dialgas, but that's about all it's really good for these days, unfortunately. The stat product is really holding it back. And we've got Florges. Florges is a solid C-tier fairy, I would say. Very interesting Pokemon. There are better fairy options to choose from. I think it's much best suited for the Premier Cup, where it absolutely puts in the work. But when we're talking Open Master League, it's a little bit of a different story. If you can get this thing locked onto a dragon, you're going to be doing just fine. Has some solid neutral play everywhere else except for the steel types. But again, I think it's best suited for the Premier format. Same thing for Garchomp. Garchomp's kind of in that Dragonite sort of territory. I think these are the premier pseudo-legendary dragons that you should be considering. Both of these, really, honestly, they're sort of in the same category. They do different things, but very powerful pseudo-legendary dragons. It's just Garchomp has a very difficult time when it's stuck up against a strong fairy like Zashian or a strong flyer. Although you can't fight back if you do run the Mudshot, Outrage, Earth Power moveset. You can put in work against Zashian as well. Very bulky, very strong. Gosh, I might even consider, I'm going to go ahead and say A tier, honestly, guys. I kind of talked myself into that one. Garchomp, very powerful. Probably the best pseudo-legendary dragon in the meta. And we've got Genesect here. I think the Chill Drive Genesect is the best one you'll want to go with, although you could go with the Burn Drive as well. They all have their sort of niche. But Genesect overall, I'm going to say solid C tier. It's decent. It can do some things. Has that strong steel typing. But if you get trapped up against the Giratina, it's a little bit rough. Even Dialga, it doesn't beat Dialga. Doesn't beat Zashian. But it can do some things. If you can land that Technoblast chill on something like a Groudon or one of the dragons, it's kind of nice, super satisfying. Solid anti-meta C tier Pokemon, I would say. And we've got Giratina Altered, It's strong, very bulky, a little bit under-leveled in terms of CP, but it more than makes up for that with its immense bulk. Of course, it does its best work in the Ultra League. I think that's where it's best suited. But it can do some things in the Open Master League as well. Very strong Pokemon. Has Shadow Claw, Dragon Claw. You can run Ancient Power. I'm not sure if Shadow Sneak is the way to go in this meta. I think you want to go Ancient Power. But yeah, the Altered form, not too bad. Very bulky. But the Origin form, my friends, I think is where it's at. This is an S-tier Pokemon. Giratina Origin, S-tier, 100%. Very strong. Very powerful generalist in the entire meta. You just have to keep it far and away from opposing dragons that happen to be running Dragon Breath. But everything else in between, I mean, it's the ultimate, one of the ultimate answers to Mewtwo. It does amazing for Mewtwo. If you can keep Mewtwo and Lugia in check, you're doing really well. Giratina Origin Form, S tier 100%. And we've got Groudon. Groudon is a solid A tier Pokemon. The best ground type, maybe. I think it's a close tie between... Maybe no. I think Groudon at this point, I think it's the second best ground type. I think the best ground type we'll see as we move along here. But Groudon, very strong, does very well against Dialga. Can put in work against Zashian as well. Just that stat product cannot be denied. Groudon, very strong. It struggles against the flyers, but can still put in work and slowly but surely chip away with those fire punches if it happens to get trapped up against a flyer. And we've got Guzzlord. Man, Guzzlord's very spicy, guys. It is it's best suited for the Ultra League. That is absolutely where it belongs. It's more of a meme in the Open Master League. The stat product's just not there, guys. It kind of falls flat in the Open Master League, unfortunately. And the same goes for Gyarados. Gyarados is best suited for the Master Premier League. But if we're in a Mega Edition, we can talk then, guys, because that thing is S tier in the Mega Edition 100%. But anything outside of the Mega Edition, if we're talking just pure Open Master League, yeah, Gyarados just is not where it's at. It's best suited for the Premier League. And the same goes for Haxorus. Haxorus, strong anti-meta Pokemon, but again, it's just too frail, guys. It does its best work in the Premier format. And so yeah, Haxorus D tier, Gyarados D tier, Guzzlord D tier. But we are moving right along into Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh is S tier 100%, guys. Ho-Oh, the value in Ho-Oh, excuse me, comes in breaking up the Dialga Zashian core. That's where the money's at with Ho-Oh. Of course, excellent answer to the strong steel types as well, but it's primarily the bread and butter with Ho-Oh is breaking up that powerful Dialga Zashian core. Keep that thing, keep it away from Kyogre, but if you can do that, keep it away from Giratina as well, although you can fight back with the Brave Birds, but anything that can core break Dialga and Zashian is quite strong. S tier for Ho-Oh 100%. Hydreigon, super spicy, guys. It's just not. There are way better. There's a way better Dark type and way better Dragon Breath users. Let's just say that. When it comes to the pseudo legendary dragons, guys, if it's not Garchomp or Dragonite, I think it's just gonna fall flat, unfortunately. Which speaks volumes for those two pseudo legendary dragons. And speaking of, we've got Kommo-o. Decent. It can do some things. It's just if you get that thing locked onto a Zashian, or it can do some things against Dialga, but there are a lot of Zashians, guys. Man, it's kind of floats between C and D tier, I would say. I'm gonna give it the respect of C tier, but my gut's telling me to drop it down to D tier, but we'll keep it in the C tier. It can do some things for sure. You just have to build around its very, very glaring weakness of Zashian. Mewtwo is not a fun time for it as well. I think it really is best suited for the Premier Cup format. And we've got Kyogre, the Premier Water type, A tier 100%. Very strong generalist. You just have to keep it far and away from the very powerful dragons. But my goodness, if you can get Kyogre locked onto a Ho-Oh or a Groudon, look out. It is wiping it out with those waterfalls and surfs. It can put in work, do some nice heavy neutral damage to Zashian as well. Just much like with Groudon, the stat product just cannot be denied on Kyogre. So very strong A tier Pokemon. In fact, one of the only few water types worth using in this meta, I would say. And then we've got Kyurem. Kyurem is a solid B tier dragon, I would say. Giving it Glaciate really worked wonders for it. Back in the day, I think, way early on it had Icy Wind, but then Niantic took that away, but they more than made up for it with Glaciate. Glaciate is just a strict upgrade on what it used to have before they took it away, Icy Wind. That gives it a little bit more play. Again, not the first Dragon Breath user I would consider, but it can definitely do some things for sure, guys. Kyurem, very solid B tier, I would say. And then we've got Landorus Incarnate. It's a solid C tier. If you have your choice between the Theron and Incarnate, you're going Theron 100%. But if you don't have a Theron, I guess you could run Incarnate. It can do some things, but falls a little flat most often than not, unfortunately. And speaking of Theron form, guys, Theron form Landorus S tier 100%. This thing kind of has filled the... It does what Excadrill should be doing, but better. It is the better version of using the Excadrill as a counter in this format. Very powerful Pokemon, has excellent coverage between Superpower and Stone Edge. Hits like a truck. You've got to prioritize shields for it, but my goodness, this thing can absolutely put in the work. This is an S tier Pokemon, 100%. And we've got Latios. Latios is very spicy, unfortunately. It just really falls flat in most circumstances. I'm gonna say D tier / C tier, but yeah, it's super spicy, guys. I think you should just save it as a mega for raid attacking, unfortunately. Which brings us to Lugia. Lugia is A tier, 100%. Very strong and powerful Pokemon. The bulk on Lugia just cannot be denied. Lugia is able to do things that it really has no business doing, such as flipping, having the opportunity and ability to flip matchups against steel types. That's insane, guys, when you really think about it. But that's just the power of Lugia. Lugia could arguably even be an S tier Pokemon for sure, 100%. Very powerful. Those Arrow Blasts with Stab just hit like a truck. Lugia, very powerful, very strong. S/A tier Pokemon, I would say, for sure. And we've got Mamoswine. Mamoswine, interesting. Solid C tier, I would say. B/C tier, I would say. Very strong. High horsepower was absolute plus for it. Strict upgrade over Bulldoze. Has the same energy cost, just does more damage. Really puts it over the edge if it finds itself paired with a very strong steel type. Mamoswine, quite strong, quite powerful. A little frail. And a little bit underpowered in terms of CP, but it can definitely do some things, much like Hisui and Avalugg. Has solid steel coverage as well. And we've got Melmetal. Melmetal, solid A tier steel type. Outside of Dialga, Melmetal is probably the second best steel type in the entire meta. Very strong, very powerful. Excellent answer to Dialga. It's just kind of falls a little flat if it finds its way to a Zashian. Even Mewtwo can put up a fight against Melmetal, but Melmetal, a very strong generalist, has an excellent diverse move pool. Very strong Pokemon overall. Solid A tier for sure. And we've got Meloetta. Meloetta is very interesting. It's a mythical, so it's kind of hard to get the resources to build. But if you're ever lucky enough to do so, you can smile all the way to the bank. Meloetta is a solid A tier Pokemon. It's very strong. I would actually say A/B tier. It's very powerful. It actually beats Mewtwo. Would you believe that, guys? Puts in work against Giratina as well. Can put in work against Zashian. Deals strong neutral coverage across the board. Very powerful. Probably the best normal type you could use in the entire meta. Very strong. Has access to Psyshock, that's his primary charge move. Also has access to Thunderbolt for coverage, as well as Dazzling Gleam. It's just hard to get the resources for it as of now, but still very strong nonetheless. And we've got Metagross. Man, Metagross. Oh, it has seen better days. Once upon a time, it was a powerhouse in the Master League meta, but it's only useful against Zashian, guys, or any other fairy. If you can get it locked onto to a fairy, it's good. But that's about it, which is why it's kind of B, C tier. Man, it's kind of rough. I'll give it the respect of B tier, but honestly, my gut tells me it should really be in C tier. It's just absolutely brutal if it finds its way to a Giratina. Forget about it. Groudon, forget about it. Kyogre, forget about it. Even Melmetal and Lugia can flip switch on this thing, but it has a place for sure. If you can get it locked onto a fairy, look out. It's doing all right. And Mewtwo, the GOAT, the OG, original legendary. Mewtwo is S tier, 100%. We all know what's up with Mewtwo. There is nothing, much like Dialga, nothing more to be said. Mewtwo, absolutely goated in the Open Master League. We all know. S tier, 100%. And we've got Palkia. Palkia is a solid B tier dragon, I would say. Very strong, and it's an excellent answer to Kyogre and Ho-Oh. Does very well against those two. Can put in work against Groudon as well. It just kind of falls flat with its coverage move. It has access to Draco Meteor, which can throw some opponents off. Also has, if you want to get really spicy, also has Fire Blast. Yeah, just kind of falls a little flat at times. But if you want a solid, strong answer to Kyogre or Ho-Oh, Palkia is the way to go, 100%. Very strong, solid B-tier dragon, I would say. And Primarina. Primarina is quite spicy, guys. The CP and stats are just not there. It is just best suited for the Master Premier, and even there, it's kind of a one-trick pony. It's really only good for hardwalling Gyarados, in my humble opinion, in the Premier format. Forget about the Open Master League. The CP is just not there, guys. If it gets Hydro Cannon, we can talk then, but until then, it's just very spicy. There are just much better Charmers to choose from. And we've got Reshiram, much like Palkia. It's a solid B-tier dragon. Again, there are just better dragons to choose from. Better fire types, if you want that type of coverage. Ho-Oh is where it's at in terms of fire types. But it's the second best fire type overall, I would say. Pretty solid, pretty decent, and it only takes neutral damage from Charm and other fairy-type damage. It has a spot. It can do some things for sure. But I would say solid B-tier dragon for sure. And we've got Rhyperior. Rhyperior is very spicy. Again, in the early days of the Master League, it was quite strong. Has an amazing stat product. It's just that rock typing is not doing it any favors, unfortunately. There are far better... I think Melmetal just does what Rhyperior should be doing much better, unfortunately. But it's a decent anti-meta Pokemon. It just kind of falls a little flat with that rock typing. That is not doing it any favors whatsoever. And we've got Snorlax. Snorlax, solid C tier, I would say. Very strong, very bulky, as we all know. But it just does its best work in the Premier format, unfortunately. It's just kind of falls a little flat, guys. It is a bit underleveled in this meta. It's really good. The best use of it, I should say, is really if you can get it locked onto a Giratina, maybe a Mewtwo, but even Mewtwo can put in work against it. But it's only a solid use as hard walling the Giratinas, but much better suited for the Premier League. And we've got Solgaleo. Solgaleo, very powerful Pokemon. This is a strong A/B tier Pokemon, in my opinion. It is the better version of Metagross. That's the power of Solgaleo. Unfortunately, most people just don't have the resources for it right now. But I really hope that they bring it into raids. If they do that and we can get some resources to build this thing, look out. It is very powerful. It will be the new Metagross in the meta, 100%. Very powerful A-tier Pokemon. And we've got Swampert. Swampert is quite spicy. Swampert is barely suited for the Premier League, let alone the Open. But much like Gyarados, guys, if we're talking Mega Edition, we can talk then. But until then, if it's just pure Master League, Swampert's just way too underleveled, unfortunately. And then we've got Sylveon. Sylveon's a solid C-tier charmer, probably the second best charmer in the meta right now. That's about it. I mean, if you want to run double charm, you're going to be running Sylveon on the team most likely. But that's about all it's good for is exploiting the double charm dynamic. That's about it, really. I mean, if you want a charmer, you're going to go Togekiss, which we make our way to now. Togekiss is a solid B tier Pokemon, very strong, very powerful, a little bit underleveled these days, but it's the premier charmer for sure. It's the best charmer available, has excellent coverage with Flamethrower and Ancient Power. It's definitely solid overall, solid B tier, I would say. And we've got Terrakion. Terrakion's very spicy, guys. Yeah, they're just better Pokemon with rock-type coverage and fighting-type coverage. Again, Melmetals kind of does what Terrakion should be doing, just with a much better typing. I think Terrakion, unfortunately, is just best suited as a raid attacker. It's one of the premier raid attackers. I think it's the best overall fighting raid attacker. And it's very highly ranked in terms of a rock-type attacker. But it's spicy. If you want to spice things up, you can try it. But yeah, they're just better Pokemon to go with for that type of coverage. And we've got Tyranitar. Tyranitar is interesting, very interesting. It struggles just because there are so many Dialga, Zashian cores. They're all over the place. It's decent if you can get it locked onto a Giratina or a Mewtwo, but that's about it. Very strong Pokemon. I think, yeah, it's just much like with all the other rock types, that rock typing is just that's not where it's at in this meta. That really hurts it quite a bit. But I'm going to give it the respect of solid C tier. And the same goes for Ursaluna. Ursaluna is a solid C tier Pokemon. It's quite spicy at this point, I would say. If they had given it Shadow Claw like many of us were anticipating, oh my goodness, that would be an absolute game changer. But as per usual with Niantic, they did not do that, unfortunately. So not having the most optimal fast move is what holds it back. It does have Tackle. Tackle's a decent fast move. It can provide some intense fast move pressure, but kind of falls flat a little bit, unfortunately. It's much better suited for the Premier League, I would say. And we've got Xerneas. Xerneas, very strong, I would say A/B tier. Again, if it had a slightly better, I don't know if this thing learns Fairy Wind, but if it had that, holy smokes, look out. Zashian would have some competition here, but for now it's kind of relegated to being a second-rate Zashian. Sort of best suited if you don't have access to a Zashian, or if you run them as a duo in the back. Xerneas can be quite good, but generally, if you have your choice of that type of coverage, you're going with Zashian. But yeah, Xerneas still very strong. It can still do some things 100%. And we've got Yveltal. My goodness. Oh man, where do we put Yveltal? Holy smokes. Oh man. I'm kind of tempted to put this thing in S tier. It's very strong and powerful. Yeah, forget it. It's S tier, almost A tier. I would say you can make a strong case for A tier, but I mean, being able to dominate Mewtwo and Giratina, that's just far too valuable to undervalue it by putting it in the A tier. It's S tier at this point. It's quite good, quite strong. You just have to keep it away from the fairies, of course. And then we've got Zashian. Whoa, I wonder where we'll put Zashian, guys. Oh, I wonder. No, we know. We all know it's S tier. Come on, we know. Nothing more needs to be said about Zashian. It is absolutely busted. It might be broken, but I'm absolutely enjoying where it's at right now. They might actually have to do something to nerf this thing, guys, because Zashian is just insanely powerful. It's S tier 100%, but yeah, that's that. Nothing needs to be said there, really. And then we've got its counterpart, Zamazenta, which falls a little flat, guys. It's kind of B/C tier, but it's C tier. It's a little difficult to use. Again, if you want that type of coverage, you're kind of going with Zashian, unfortunately. Zamazenta just falls a little flat. It actually loses to Dialga. That should not be the case. It's a fighter. It should be beating a steel type like Dialga, but it doesn't. It just falls a little flat. Zashian is actually just does what Zamazenta should be doing, just better. And we've got Zarude. Zarude's a powerful, strong B-tier Pokemon. The best grass type. The only grass type worth using, to be honest, in this meta. It's just hard getting trapped up against the Zashian or a Ho-Oh. Does very well, but there's just a better dark type option in the form of Yveltal. But it can do some things. Very good counter to the primals. I think it thoroughly beats both Kyogre for sure and Groudon. So if it can do that, it's got a lot going for it. Very solid B-tier Pokemon. And we've got Zekrom. Zekrom, solid A-tier, 100%, very strong. The value in Zekrom comes in dominating Ho-Oh. A lot of people run Ho-Oh to counter the Zashian Dialga core, and then you throw Zekrom into the mix to counter the Ho-Ohs. That's where the value is there. Of course, if you get it locked onto a Kyogre, it's doing very well as well. Very strong dragon. Yeah, probably in the top 5 in terms of dragons, I would say. Very strong, powerful dragon. It's just the bread and butter, and its value comes in dominating Ho-Oh and hard-walling Ho-Oh. Unless it's running Legacy Earthquake, of course. Then it can be in some trouble there. But yeah, that about wraps it up, guys. That's my tier list for the Open Master League. I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope this gives you guys, those of you who are just building up your Master League roster, hope that gives you a little bit of direction on what you should maybe be prioritizing, and gives you guys an insight into where I believe all of the Pokemon that are worth mentioning rank in terms of the Open Master League. So yeah, that's it, guys. I had a blast. I hope you all enjoyed. As always, I thank you for watching, and keep up the grind. Thank you, guys.